The air was thick with tension as I stood in the dimly lit parking lot, my heart pounding against my ribcage. The neon sign above the seedy motel blinked erratically, casting eerie shadows across the pavement. I had followed him here, my brother-in-law, David, driven by a nagging suspicion that had grown too strong to ignore. Peering through the windshield of my car, I watched as a figure emerged from the motel's entrance. It was David, escorting a woman who looked out of place in this dingy setting. They walked towards a sleek black sedan, their conversation muted but animated. As they approached the car, I could make out snippets of their conversation. "Are you sure this is safe?" the woman asked, her voice tinged with concern. "Absolutely. No one knows about this," David replied, his tone smooth and reassuring. "It's just a way to make some extra cash." My stomach churned as I realized the truth. David wasn't just making extra cash. He was involved in something far more sordid: prostitution. Anger and betrayal surged through me, threatening to overwhelm my senses. How could he do this? How could he betray our family like this? I waited until they drove off before stepping out of my car. My legs felt like lead as I walked towards the motel, my mind racing with thoughts of how to confront him. Should I tell my husband, Michael? Would he be able to handle the shock? Or should I approach David first, give him a chance to explain himself? Back home, I paced the living room, my anxiety mounting with each step. The ticking of the clock seemed deafening, amplifying my inner turmoil. Finally, I picked up my phone and dialed Michael's number. "Hey, babe, what's up?" he answered, his voice warm and inviting. "We need to talk," I said, my voice trembling. "About David." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Michael's tone turned serious. "What about him? Is everything okay?" "No, it's not," I confessed, taking a deep breath. "I found out something terrible. He's been involved in prostitution." Michael fell silent for what felt like an eternity. When he spoke again, his voice was cold and hard. "Where is he now?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but we have to do something. This can't go on." "You're right," Michael agreed, his anger palpable. "I'm coming home. We'll figure this out together." The next day, we confronted David at his apartment. His face paled when he saw us standing at his doorstep, a mix of guilt and defiance flashing across his features. "Can we come in?" Michael asked, his voice calm but firm. David hesitated, then stepped aside, allowing us entry. Inside, the atmosphere was tense as we sat down in his cramped living room. "We know about your little side business," Michael began, his eyes fixed on David. "How could you do this to us? To our family?" David shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding our gaze. "I didn't mean for anyone to find out," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "It was just a way to make ends meet." "That's no excuse," I interjected, my patience wearing thin. "You've put yourself and our family at risk. What were you thinking?" David sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I wasn't thinking clearly, I guess. It started off small, but then, it got out of control." "Well, it stops now," Michael declared, his resolve evident. "You need to get help, David. This isn't who we are." David nodded, his expression somber. "I know. I'll take care of it." We left his apartment feeling both relieved and burdened by the weight of the secret we now carried. But our relief was short-lived. A week later, I received a call from the hospital. David had been brutally beaten, and the police suspected it was related to his illicit activities. At the hospital, I found Michael already by David's bedside. His face was bruised and swollen, his body covered in bandages. Tears welled up in my eyes as I took in his battered form. "What happened?" I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "It was a client," David murmured, his eyes filled with pain. "He found out about my situation, and he lost it." Michael clenched his fists, his anger boiling over. "We need to go to the police," he said firmly. "This can't go unpunished." David shook his head, his voice weak. "No, please. If this gets out, it'll destroy everything. Our family, our reputation." "Then what do you suggest we do?" I asked, frustration creeping into my tone. "Just let me handle it," David pleaded, his eyes darting between us. "I'll take care of it, I promise." We left the hospital that night, our minds heavy with the secrets we now shared. Back home, Michael and I sat in silence, each lost in our thoughts. "We can't keep covering for him." Michael finally broke the silence. "It's not right." "I know," I agreed, my heart aching. "But what choice do we have? We can't turn our backs on him." "Maybe we need to distance ourselves," Michael suggested, his voice tinged with sadness. "For our own sake, if nothing else." I nodded, knowing he was right. The trust had been broken, and there was no going back. As we made the difficult decision to separate from David, a part of me wondered if we were doing the right thing. But as I looked at Michael, his face etched with pain and disappointment, I knew we had to protect ourselves, even if it meant sacrificing our relationship with David.